Tom Hanks is one of Cleveland's adopted sons. He spent a lot of time here in the late 70s as a member of the Great Lakes Theatre troupe, performing Shakespeare, honing his acting craft, and he says as much, not only in the interview I'm presenting to you, but almost any time he's asked. His presence here has never ceased, going to the Guardians opening day and throwing out Wilson the volleyball on the first pitch. He also narrated the Guardians' first commercial announcing the name change. So Tom Hanks is a Clevelander. And he was in town doing a one-man show to help promote the Great Lakes Theatre Festival. And the man running the festival appears in this at the end, but it's pure Tom Hanks talking about acting, Cleveland, his career. He did promote his current film, The Bonfire of the Vanities, but he talked about a whole bunch of movies. This is a great Tom Hanks interview, not just a Cleveland interview.
Welcome to the second hour of the Morning Exchange. We're glad to have you here today. It's partly cloudy, 16 degrees right now, and there's only one thing to say about the second hour.
What is it?
Tom Hanks is here.
Morning, Tom.
Morning.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Almost was home for a while. 3 years is a fair patch of time.
Yeah. Three extended summers.
And you came here first in 77?
Yes, 77, 78, and 79.
And who was the guy who talked to you first? And or to whom did you first talk before you came? Who was directing back then?
A man by the name of Vincent Dowling was the artistic director of the
funny
Great
accent,
Lakes.
as I recall.
He was an Irishman, yes. And he had all the charm and the blarney that goes along with being an Irishman. It was a magical time for me. I was 20 years old, and here someone was giving me the opportunity to do something in a completely different, I won't say alien atmosphere, but I was a native Californian. I had never even been out of the state. And to come to Cleveland to do Shakespeare and just the theater, which I loved and was doing for free, and to actually make, oh golly, $50 to $100 a week doing it. That was truly quite a carrot to dangle in front of a young man.
We had Holly Folger on the show recently, and she said that she worked with you at the time.
We were both interns in this slave labor program that they led the Great Lakes Theatre Festival internships. I guess there were probably 12, 15 of us or so, and we were all varying backgrounds as far as the theater goes, but we all had the same. It was really a magical opportunity to work with professionals.
She recalled that when you would talk about the future, that you were the one person in the bunch who really thought about what it would be like when you made it.
Oh, that's just
she said,
silly.
in fact,
that's not true at all.
She said that you would ponder what you would say on Johnny Carson.
Oh,
when you were
now look. I would not actually sit there and say, when I'm on Johnny Carson, what I'm going to say. I believe it was in the context of, oh my gosh, that must be a scary thing to go out and sit in that shotgun seat next to Johnny. Because we've all grown up watching this guy. When we were 8 years old, it was a big thing to stay up late and watch Johnny Carson. And we would do the same thing. And I always thought, gee, that must be a very, very hard situation to be in that first time you're on the Johnny Carson
What did
show.
you say the first time you were on his
Well,
show?
it was funny. It was a scary, scary proposition the first time I was on the Johnny Carson show. I think I've only been on it 5 or 6 times, but every time you do it, there's a lot of people in there, for one thing. It's about 600 people in Johnny, my good friend Johnny Carson's audience, and there's heat. There's a lot of heat from the lights and from the people, and that band that he has is very big and very loud. And so you're standing back there behind that rainbow curtain waiting to go out, and you have a talent coordinator mumbling in your ear about what stories you're supposed to tell and how long you actually have. And yeah, you actually have an out-of-body experience that says, I'm actually at home watching myself on the Johnny Carson show. And when you walk out for that first time and step up on that little platform and shake hands with Ed McMahon, you really do think, I'm shaking hands with Ed McMahon. And then you sit down and your eyes glaze over. And yeah, it's the most scariest moment in show business, I'd have to say. Next, of course, to the 19th anniversary of the Morning Exchange with your crack staff of television experts that come up just more poorly dressed than I am, as a matter of fact.
I'm holding a book here. It has 600 and some odd pages. Let's see how many.
Oh, is that? I thought it had 1,000.
It probably seemed like it sometimes. 659 pages. Bonfire of the Vanities, Tom Wolfe's book, which is
twice as many exclamation points.
Had you read it before?
I had read Bonfire when it first came out. I was one of the fans of Tom Wolfe, and I think I was one of the millions of people who were sort of waiting for the novel that we all sort of knew he was going to write sooner or later. Purely piece of fiction, but an awful lot of truth in it at the same time.
There's a fair amount of controversy about the film, and of course about the book as well.
Which is exactly what we thought was going to happen. Yeah.
But he is an equal opportunities insulter in a way, isn't he? I mean, he takes a very satiric look at virtually every aspect of contemporary big-time New York society.
Well, in some ways it is the quintessential story, not so much about New York City, but the people who live in New York City and the way an awful lot of stuff can be blown out of proportions, both trivial and then also the tragic. And I think that, yeah, no one comes off in a very good light in either Mr. Wolfe's book or in the movie. It seems as though everybody is crusading for I don't know, almost the 7 deadly sins: greed, power, influence, money, sex. It's all right there, and that seems to be foremost on everyone's mind, and certainly in the film.
You had an interesting experience observing how art can imitate life. While you were making the film, there was a case going on in the courts in New York.
Yes, there was it was actually a great tragedy. It was sort of nationwide. It was the Mondello murder trial. A black kid was killed by a gang of white youths in the Bensonhurst section of New York, and it really was polarizing the New York populace. And we were driving to the set one day to shoot the courtroom scene in which a brouhaha, literally a melee, breaks loose in the courtroom. And while we were driving, I had the radio on in the car, and the Mondello murder trial verdict had been announced, and there was a melee broke loose in the courtroom, and the radio reporter said it was as though she was watching the courtroom scene from Bonfire the Vanities, and we were going off to shoot the courtroom scene from Bonfire the Vanities. So there it was, that out-of-body experience once again. It was an amazing thing. My hair stood up on the back of my neck.
We have a couple of sequences to look at from the new production of Bonfire, and perhaps we'll look at one, and we'll come back and talk a bit about the perspective that Tom has on the film. Let's take a look at this first.
Maria.
Oh, Sherman.
I wonder if we should tell the police about this.
The police?
Yes, the police. We were almost robbed. And I think there's a possibility that we hit one of them. There was this kind of sound. Did you hear it like we hit one of them?
Did you see him get hit?
No.
No. Neither did I. So, if the question ever comes up, all that happened was 2 boys blocked the road, they tried to rob us, and we got away. And that's all we know.
But if we call the police now, then we're not...
Let's call them. Let's call them and invite them over here to our little love nest. They would love to get their hands on us. The police, and the press, and all the rest of the meteorites.
Meteorites?
Yeah, the newspapers, radio, television. Well, I can see it now. Mr. Sherman McCoy of Park Avenue and Mrs. Arthur Ruskin of Fifth Avenue are recuperating after their adventures in the Bronx.
Sherman, just to put that in perspective, he had just bumped into a guy and critically injured him. Well, he got lost in his Mercedes, right?
He took a wrong turn in the Bronx and, yes, had to get out of the car, and two gentlemen approach him, and in the course of a great massive confusion and fear, one of them is hit by his car. But Sherman was not driving the car, and that's a big thing. That's a major plot device as far as the film goes.
What kind of person is Sherman McCoy?
Well, he's described, the quintessential description of him is the master of the universe. A guy who he sells bonds on Wall Street, and because he makes so much money and it's such a high energy, high adrenaline kind of feel, that he really does view himself as a man who possesses superhuman abilities, and he thinks he does walk in a rarefied atmosphere that is above that of normal men. And there's no small amount of the population that thinks that very same thing.
He's there with his mistress, who's played by Melanie Griffith,
yes.
Having grown bored of the
he's married and he has a kid, and he thinks that he is entitled to a mistress. It's part of being a landed gentry, yes.
And of course, the accident that takes place, the hitting of that young guy in in the Bronx there. It is Bronx, right?
Oh, yes.
Is what sets off a substantial
Yeah,
portion of the story.
it's a story of Sherman's fall from grace. A man who has absolutely everything, and it would seem as though he's lost his soul, has it all ripped right out from underneath.
And the suits you're actually wearing, there were Seville Row suits that were made for you for the...
Those were some expensive suits.
Like $3,500?
Well, I don't know what the actual cost was, but I would be surprised if it wasn't even more than that. Every stitch of clothing was handmade. It was, which was dictated by the book. It was, I mean, I didn't ask for that stuff, but I'll be happy to wear it.
When you put on a suit like that, does it help you feel the character?
Oh, most definitely. As you can see, I'm not exactly a Savile Row kind of guy, much like your crack staff here in the morning. But yeah, I mean, that's certainly part of the process, and it takes a long time in order to put that together. So when you put your hands in, when you put your fate in the hands of the wardrobe people, they slowly layer a complete like exterior skeleton for you, and certainly when it's something as purely defined as the Savile Row suit, yeah, it does something to your posture and your bearing.
When you're wearing your tux, I couldn't help but note the stud buttons. I said, gee whiz, those are fabulous.
We spared no expense. What can I say?
We're going to see one more little scene from Bonfire, and then we'll take our break and come back and continue our discussion with Tom Hanks, who's in town to do a big benefit for the Great Lakes Theatre Festival. It used to be called the Shakespeare Festival in the old days when you were
right. Changed
Same
names.
thing, though. We'll be back. Take a look.
And then this newspaper thing started up, this Peter Fallow person. Everything was wrong. A total disregard for the truth. Now, why do they do this?
This'll be your stop here.
Everyone is calling me by my first name, like they know me, like they own me. The lawyers and the police and the newspapers. Now, how did I get to be so important?
You're not important. You're just dinner. Don't you get it? A week from now, a month from now, these people aren't even going to remember what they ate.
Next stop, 76. Thank you for everything.
Okay.
I should have just called the police right away, right when it happened. But I couldn't, because it really wasn't my decision to make. Well, I mean, I wasn't driving the car. Come on, get in there, get out.
Stand clear of the doors, please.
Sherman, get out.
Sherman, wait a minute!
Excuse me, Sherman!
One of
marvelous.
the nicest
From Big.
movies, yeah. Yesterday when you were talking with Wilma Smith on Live on 5, you said something like Punchline was a very challenging role for you. Big was relatively easy, which amazed me because everybody commented about your portrayal of a child inside this adult body.
Well, thanks. It was just something that as soon as I read it, and it was an excellent screenplay by Gary Ross and Ann Spielberg, that it just seemed to make itself. I think I had a clue as to what they were talking about and what they were trying to capture. And I have kids of my own that I pay a lot of attention to, and so it was just this thing that unfolded quite nicely. Yeah, that was my work. As far as actually making the movie, it was exhausting, but especially that scene there, which was like jumping rope for the better part of 2 days. That was a little tough.
We also ought to consider Splash. I expect Splash was the film that really made you a household name.
Yes,
yeah. How many people saw it? Do you have any idea? We can measure the TV audiences, but I know they must know some.
You know, it was a bit of a phenomenon when it was released. Yeah, I think it would. It was in the top, grossing films of the year, and it came out at a time. It came out around Easter time, which. So it wasn't like a summer blockbuster, but it played throughout the summer. It was just this kind of film that just ended up being the thing that people saw 2 or 3 times, and parents and adults and kids, they all liked it, and a lot of kids' birthday parties. And then went between cable and video cassette. For a while there, I think the movie was the nation's babysitter, Yeah. We're going out, we've rented Splash, and you can have pizza for dinner, and we'll be back about 11:30. It was...
We have a little sequence from that as well. Let's go to Splash. Watch, this is a great, great scene.
Be careful, madam. The plate is very hot.
Hey, thank you. These look terrific. She's really hungry.
Oh, I love that scene.
How were you cast in that part? Were you the person they had in mind from the beginning?
It was a movie that was being directed by Ron Howard, who wasn't quite Ron Howard yet. He was still pretty much Opie Cunningham at that point. And it was a movie that was about a mermaid that was being made for Disney, and this was before Disney was Disney. They were still old Disney back then. And so we sort of made this kind of low voltage kind of film off the beaten path, and nobody particularly cared about it. And I was just able to fit the bill when the time came. I think a lot of people either turned it down or didn't want to do it, or they wouldn't pay him or something like that. So there was just a crack that I was able to fall into right there, and it was, thank goodness.
You made a lot of films in a fairly short period of time. Yeah. Were there times when you were working on two at the same time?
Oh, well, it's funny because you make a film and then you go away from it for a while, and you have to come back months later and do what they call looping, which is dialogue replacement. So in that way, yes. But I did, yeah. I went on a tear of making an awful lot of films back to back almost, or just with a few weeks off, because you think that that's what the process is that you think also that this train is going to stop somewhere. Yeah. So I want to jump on another one as soon as I can. And you have to really learn how to end up pacing yourself. But I was a younger man then, and I had much more enthusiasm, and I trusted everybody who said boo to me, so I went off and made a lot of movies.
After Splash, you felt that your career really started accelerating and the scripts started coming in at a faster rate. Was that the way it was for you?
Well, yeah, I think it's just one of the parameters of the business that if you're suddenly visible, then everybody else wants to get something to you. So yeah, a lot of other things come by your way.
We see the movies that you've made. Was there a part that you really wanted that got away from you?
Yeah, yes and no, but there's never anything that I can say that I pursued that I ended up not getting. There's a lot of stuff that comes my way that I say I don't get it, and they go off and they make it, and it's a wonderful movie, and so you end up sort of kicking yourself for making that kind of decision, but not really. I mean, you can only react to the stuff that really affects you somehow.
What kind of criteria would you use if you'd look at something, look at a proposal or a project? What would draw you? Would it be the quality of the writing, or?
Well, I think it's mostly, it is definitely the quality of the writing, but more than that, I think it's the theme of the movie itself, what it actually is kind of examining, and whether or not that can withstand the scrutiny of having a movie made about it. I mean, there's a lot of comedies that are just for the sake of comedies, and I've made my portion of those, as a matter of fact. But for me now, there has to be some aspect of the human condition or human behavior that it's dealing with in some sort of rational and understandable and fresh and unique kind of fashion. It's no real template as far as picking what comes next, but it does have to be. It does have to be new, and it does have to be well crafted, and good people have to be associated with it. But more often than not, it has to be about some I guess, part of myself. It comes down to that I haven't really taken a look at yet, and maybe should.
Is it in some ways always a little scary when you're going into a new project? Because I would think, as an actor, it's a great leap of faith because it may be a wonderful script and the character is great, the story is wonderful, but then there are so many other elements that can change.
It's very difficult to make a good movie because it takes so long and so many people are involved and it's so expensive and there's so much pressure in order to do it and there's so much attention on it. It's even harder to make a good comedy. Like there's a film out now, Home Alone, which is, still this box office monster. And I think it is because it's genuinely a funny movie, and those are extremely difficult to make. Much less pay attention to a cohesive story and, interesting camera angles and all that, and it ends up stacking itself up. The odds are against it.
578-1000 is the number. Maybe we can take a few calls as we go along here. Tom Hanks is our guest, and we'll be right back.
To jump in a volcano.
Yeah.
That is
That's what he was going to do, I swear.
That I really enjoyed, and yet there were a lot of critics who didn't get it.
I thought that was a very special movie, but it was very particular. You try to bust up the form a little bit. You try to sort of redefine some way how movies are made, and that one also tried to redefine, I think, how stories are told. And some people just don't get it, which is okay. That's fine.
How much does that color your experience of the film, or your feeling about the whole thing, what the critics have to say in the final release?
Well, I pay attention to what the critics say because that is a barometer to how the film is perceived. But throw a rock, you hit a critic. I mean, which I'd like to sometimes, but everybody has an opinion of it, and so I actually end up putting just as much credence in what friends of mine say, or what people at an airport say. Not that I try to. So, what did you think of the film? I don't ask that ever, but people always yell it at you and heading somewhere.
What do your kids say about your
I don't know what they think when they go see these things. Says, Dad, what are you doing? What are you doing up there? They say that a lot. Why don't you just make funny movies, Dad? My daughter says that my movies, all the movies I've been making lately, always make her cry. I said, Dad, they just make me cry. And I'm sorry, sweetie.
That's very sweet.
Well, now, we were talking about Jackie Gleason and the film you made with him, Nothing in Common. How did that project come about?
It was actually the story of one of the writers who put it together, and the producer, literally the father got a divorce and had leukemia and all this kind of stuff, and it was sort of this amazing thing. And so Gary Marshall and myself and Alex Rose, who was the producer, got together and just tried to make it as, I think, as, I don't want to say real, but at the same time as real as possible, because when I think that story was, I think it was very, very funny when it was right next to being very, very tragic, very, very emotional. And we were fascinated by those times in our lives and in American society when it seems to be buttressed right up one against the other.
Tom, we have a little sequence from that to share with our friends out there. This is from Nothing in Common, Tom Hanks and Jackie Gleason.
You ran around and you had your fun and you came here to eat and sleep like it was a boarding house. That's where I grew up, Dad, a boarding house. Thank you. I found out what you did to Mom and what you did to me.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. It was tough. Very tough. All of those dreadful things I did to you. But that's how I was brought up. And I did the best I could.
Fine. You know, tomorrow I'm doing a commercial about a family that cares for each other, loves each other. I'm faking it.
There's some very powerful.
Well, the dynamics of family is what was fascinating about that, and especially with Mr. Gleason in the role as the father.
What was your relationship like with Jackie Gleason?
Oh, I bucked myself up every day of going to work not to make a fool of myself in front of Mr. Gleason. I didn't want to be one of those kind of people that sit around and say, well, how'd you do the honeymooners? How did you do that? How'd you come up with that honeymooners thing? That was so funny, the honeymooners thing. And yet I wanted to all at the same time. There was only one day, honestly, where his wife was on the set, who he adored, and every time she was around, he sort of like bubbled up and was a bit more effervescent. And so there was one afternoon where I actually asked a little bit about how he did what he did in those days. He was amazingly a secure man, I think. He had done everything possible in every realm of show business, recording records, serious records, dramas, comedies, television. He wrote books. He was really, truly a Renaissance man.
I remember when I broke into the radio business years and years ago, the radio station I played was one of these so-called smooth music things, and there were always the albums of Jackie Gleason.
Right, yes.
And
which were huge sellers.
Yeah, they were. It was like Mantovani.
Music for lovers.
Yeah,
music for lovers. In which, yes, he would like narrate, in this actually mellifluous, or whatever, very just, somber voice, It was, he said he wanted to do that. That came up. He wanted to make he wanted to make records that guys in Brooklyn, in small, cheesy apartments who don't make a lot of money, would think we're really classy, and that's what he did.
Now, we have a bit from Punchline. Let's just take a look at that, and then we'll come back and talk about that film as well with Tom Hanks. And I promise you, your calls in the next segment.
The movie sort of depressed me.
Yeah, and it was kind of sold as this crazy comedy, wasn't there?
Oh, boy.
There was kind of a dark look at these people who do this for a living in the club scene.
Was that a tough role for you?
It was a bit of a cathartic role, actually, because I have this mantle of being a funny guy that has been placed upon my shoulders, genetically, I think. And in order to kind of go off and examine what it is that drives these people to get up. Sometimes it's just the need in order to be funny in a spotlight, but there's other times that there's other stuff. Another problem was that we actually tried to capture, I think, how hard it is to be funny up on stage night after night. And that's a very realistic thing that he says, that it takes every night 6 nights a week, 3 clubs a night, opening up in people that don't care about you, because sooner or later it ends up you just trying to make a bunch of drunks laugh, which does stuff to your psyche that is not really healthy.
The character you played in that film was really filled with a lot of desperation and violent
self-loathing.
emotions.
Yeah.
Does that go with you when the camera stopped rolling for the day at all?
You know, actually, that one did. My wife said, when are you going to be done with this movie? Yeah, because there's an aggression that goes along with it, and that I ended up carrying that around with me, so that you come into the room and automatically I wanted to get into people's face about pretty much everything, saying, you know, I'm funny, I'm funnier than you, and then it does become that kind of competition after a while.
Interesting.
Your call's next. Here's Dan now with a look at the weather. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning.
All right, these are the simple rules. No barking, no growling. You will not lift your leg to anything in this house. This is not your room. No slobbering, no chewing. You will wear a flea collar. This is not your room. No begging for food, no sniffing of crotches, and you will not drink from my toilet. This is not your room. This is your room. The rest of the house is mine.
That dog did some serious drooling.
That's an amazing dog, yeah, yeah.
Drool everywhere.
And it's not fake, it's not imitation stuff, that's just natural, realistic dog gruel.
It becomes cementitious. They do this number and it flies everywhere.
Oh man, does it
Our
ever.
dog Cleo's been dead for 3 years now, and we still
have that
little
remnant here.
A little patina.
We had
hardened saliva.
We had a car, the policeman's car in that thing, and as of the first day, it was just trashed on the inside. One day of shooting, and it was just, oh gosh, looked like an ancient automobile.
But they're great.
Oh, it's amazing, amazing beast.
You yourself have one now?
A dog? Yeah. We just had pups.
That's not slobbering.
No, not nearly the slobbering kind.
Let's take some calls. Good morning. Your question for Tom.
Yes, I'd like to know who would be the best actress you have worked with, and how has success changed you, and what's your plans for the future?
Oh, okay, that's 3.
Okay, all right. Slow down.
Best actress.
The best actress I worked with is Rita Wilson, I'd have to say, who is also the best wife I've ever had. What was the second question? How has success changed me? Well, I end up being on a lot of morning talk shows that I never appeared on before for some reason. What was the plans for the future?
Yeah, plans for the future.
Nothing. Well, it's other than
Tonight.
Saturday night at the Great Lakes Theatre Festival.
Do you want to direct something sometime? I'm sure you must.
Oh, no, no, that takes so long. It takes an awfully long time. You have to have better powers of concentration than I could ever muster.
Good morning. What's your question?
Oh, good morning. Where do I begin? Except to say that we are probably collectively your biggest fans here in Cleveland. We've got a family of about 20 people, and you've become a cult member.
Holy cow.
We never hear you mention the movie The Burbs, which we think is hysterical.
Oh, well, there's some very good moments in that film. I'd have to agree with you there. That's
we've
nice
seen
of you.
it probably a dozen times, and
All
it
20
turned
of
my
you?
3-year-old daughter into your biggest fan, who, by the way, says that she gets chills up and down her spine when she sees you on television, stays up to watch Saturday Night Live, and has memorized every word from The Burbs, and her opening line when she meets somebody new is, "Have you ever seen The Burbs?" And they look like, what are you talking about?
This is a 3-year-old?
That's
a 3-year-old.
Pretty hip kid, I gotta say. That's a hip 3-year-old.
Oh, completely. Anyway, welcome to Cleveland, and we just think you are the funniest guy alive.
Well, that is a very nice thing. They come from a family of 20, and what a burden that woman has. 20. I hope they're not all her kids. I hope there's some in-laws in there. That's all. That's very sweet.
And good morning to you.
Good morning. I have a comment and a question. First, I'd like to say that my husband and I, we've seen everything TV and your big screen work, and we enjoy it so very much. You're very talented.
Thank you.
And next, I'd like to say that you're a very intelligent, very zany character, and I think you'd make a great father. I bet you and your talented wife have some great kids. Can you tell me more about them? I understand you just had a baby. Was it a boy? Was it a girl? Did you see it born? Tell me everything.
We had a baby boy. He is a pretty goofy kid. If he would only start sleeping the whole night through, I think he'd show some of that intelligence that you're talking about. As it is now, he's just zany. He's just a zany little baby who will not sleep.
And good morning. Your question.
Good morning, Tom. I have a comment and a question.
Sure.
My comment is, in my favorite movie is Big. The part when you first turned to be big and you had to go to New York and stay in a hotel by yourself in the middle of New York City with all these characters around you, and then you wound up lying on the bed crying. I'm telling you, I just wanted to cry for you. And my question is, with the success that you had in Big, did that help you get the part in Vanities? Because I understand it was a really sought-after part.
I would probably guess at the time that a lot of attention because of Big, yeah, that certainly, promoted that somewhat. It was a very sought-after role, but I'm going to jump to the conclusion that they just cast me in that because I'm just a fabulously talented actor and they couldn't imagine anybody else in the role. I'll jump to that conclusion. Whether it's true or not, I don't care. I'll live a life of delusion.
And your question. Hi there.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I have a comment. I think the funniest movie you've ever made was The Money Pit. The scene where the bathtub fell through the floor has got to be the funniest thing you've ever done.
Oh, well, thanks. That was... Did she, when the bathroom fell through the bathtub? Yeah, that was. We had a discussion with Richard Benjamin in which, you're always trying to figure out, what's going to work the best. And we were talking and said, I think this is one of those kind of moments where the longer it goes on, the funnier it'll be. What do you think? He said, yeah, I think you're right. So they just kind of started it, and I just tried to laugh in a different way as long as possible. And there was there's a danger zone, you don't know if you've gone too far or you should cut back. So we just kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, and it ended up working okay.
Was that a fairly physically demanding movie for you, or was most of the work done by stunt people?
There was a lot of stunt work done on that, but there was, you do a special effects movie, and it really, you end up putting yourself in a position that you can't imagine why you're there. There's one thing where the wall was kind of exploding back at me, and I was standing there as I had to, and I turned around, and literally everybody on the crew was wearing plastic face shields, so that, literally, you turn around, there's like 20 guys with plastic face shields who are all like protecting their eyes and face.
Right.
And there I am, essentially butt naked in front of exploding porcelain and electrical sparks, and I'm thinking, why, shouldn't I have one of those? Shouldn't I really? But no, I guess I can't.
Kind of a battle zone.
But yeah, you have to deal with it.
Let's take another. Good morning.
Hi, Tom. I have a joke for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. What do you call a tidal wave that hits the stock market?
I have no idea.
Big splash in the money pit.
I like it.
That's a good joke. That's an excellent joke.
And do you have a question?
No,
that was it? Oh, well. Holy cow. Oh, the crew's dying. Get up, guys. Get up. Stop it. Come on. Get up. Oh, we've lost them now.
Okay, Tom, when you were doing all that Shakespeare, what did it do for you as a craftsman and as an actor? Do you think it gave you skills that you're using in these wonderful films?
Yes, most definitely. The demands that are placed on a repertory actor are the greatest that you'll ever come across in an entire career. The workload and the powers of concentration that it requires is unlike anything else in the theater. When you're rehearsing 6 plays in order to get them up one after another and playing them night after night, you have to have all of your facilities intact and sharp, and you have to show up on time, and you have to read it as it's put down on paper, and you have to do what the director says. And that's a discipline that will never leave me, and that's why I'm really back, because it was the foundation for whatever this goofy thing I do for a living now is.
And that's tomorrow night, and Gerald Freedman, who is the director of the Great Lakes Theatre Festival, will join us up here, and we'll talk a bit about what Tom will do down on Playhouse Square tomorrow night. At the State Theatre on Playhouse Square, the Great Lakes Theatre Festival will present this man. There it is.
Wanted, the most wanted man.
He won't ever praise that. And it's Gerald Freedman's production. He's putting it all together. And Jerry, it's nice to see you.
Thank you.
You very much for
That's
coming
great
today.
to be here.
He's the boss man down there. Yeah. And what are we going to see tomorrow night? What have you worked out?
Well, what has Tom worked out? Tom really has created a one-man show. We're just putting a framework around it. And yesterday was the first time we did a little rehearsal, and I was dazzled, to tell you the truth. It's going to be great. He never stops, and with tremendous variety. It's Cleveland, 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 Shakespeare, Shakespeare, Cleveland, 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 and it's wonderful. Lots and lots of fun, and very much tailored to this city and his experiences here.
Maybe we could see like a preview, a sneak preview. Like
Oh,
a trailer.
no, please.
No way. You know you have to pay to see any of this, right?
It's a benefit for the festival. We need the bucks.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're trying to match an endowment grant, right?
We're matching a challenge grant from the National Endowment and trying to whittle away at our little debt. And, you know, we're pretty close to a sold-out house now. That's the State Theater. That's a lot of seats.
Yeah. We have some slides of your work when you were toiling there, doing those 90 and 100-hour weeks here at the, as we then called it, the Theater Festival. Which one is that?
That's, this would be Two Gentlemen of Verona, myself and an actor named John Peter Benson.
And that was the one that you won the prize for here in town.
Yes, they gave me a prize.
Yeah,
that
it's
was
like which twin has the Tony?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there's the era of big hair. What can I say? People had big hair back then. I believe that's Polly, which was John Gay's sequel to The Beggar's Opera, which was had just been rediscovered actually not long before we did this. That's me on the right there. This was a collection of pieces from Shakespeare called Do Me a Favorite, in which we performed a lot. We took that all over the state. We performed it in Worcester and quite a few places.
Did you go to Lorraine with that one too?
I don't know if we went to Lorraine with that
That's
one.
Jerry's hometown.
Yeah,
that's just me backstage bumping into a wet paint sign.
And you actually painted the scenery too.
Oh, we did pretty much everything that first year. Yes, that slave labor program. They had us doing everything from. I never sewed costume, and I never worked in the box office because I would just have been useless then.
Well, how did you live? I mean, you're getting $50, $75 a week, whatever it is. I mean, did you just sleep in a cubicle someplace?
We had, actually, that first year, there was 4 of us, and we had a house that was going to be renovated just around the corner from the theater, which the neighbors may still remember it. That and the Lakewood Police Department would probably still recall exactly where it was. And we all sort of lived communally and hand to mouth, and it was an amazing summer, you know.
Lots of canned spaghetti, stuff like that?
Yeah, canned chili and
we had
Pepsi
a dinner
Cola
last night together, and they were reminiscing, Mary Bill and Bill Rudnan. And it sounded like you had a great time, though. You had a good time.
It was my halcyon days.
How has the festival itself changed? You know, we have a name change that you've had for how many years?
Well, the theater is going to celebrate. I mean, Tom is here to help us celebrate our 30th birthday. And how it changed. I mean, the big change, of course, was going from Lakewood High School to the Ohio Theater in Playhouse Square. And that's a major, big change. I mean, not only in the kind of theater, but the kind of expectation, I think, that an audience gets. And since I wasn't around in the early days, I can only surmise. It's just gone from better to better to better to better. That's I say it. Really, I think the quality of the shows now is, you know, equal to anything in the country, and it's worthy of that kind of setting. I think it's a fabulous setting, Playhouse Square and the Ohio Theater.
It's also, you don't find this. It's a shrinking art form, the classical repertory theater. Unfortunately, there's fewer and fewer of them all over.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, Cleveland supported a classical repertory theater for 30 years. That's something very special. And we do it because we believe that that kind of material should be seen and experienced by the community.
Should not be allowed to die.
Yeah.
No.
We have some more little slides to look at. Let's talk more. Remember that?
Yeah, that's from King Lear. With Hal Holbrook and Gloria Beagler.
Which you took to New York. It's still...
Well, no, went to New York and played for 3 months. It was a limited run, and very successfully. But it's over now. It ended just before Christmas.
And Hal Holbrook. And
yeah, that was from our Broadway musical. George Abbott, the famous director, who was 100 years old and directed his first Broadway success. We produced it on our stage. And it was called Broadway. It was the first mix kind of Backstage and Gangsters, which, you know, was the progenitor of all kinds of movies. And
Am I in this?
You're not in
no,
this.
I didn't think so. I thought I was far down on the line there on the left, but that's not me after all.
You could be. Right. Oh, and this was one of my favorites, Love's Labour's Lost. You know, it's not a very well-known Shakespearean comedy, but it was a great success here. Now it's becoming well-known. We did it in a 30s mode. It's a lot of fun. It's about young love. The audience has really dug what I think they thought might be difficult Shakespeare. Boys from Syracuse. That was another George Abbott celebration. George Abbott came on his 100th birthday and not only directed, supervised everything, and he was as sharp as I like to think you and I are.
Well, he was great. I had the chance to have him on the show here, and he was wonderful.
Wow.
Like
I know.
to be in the presence of a guy like that.
Fred, since that time, that's my goal.
Yeah.
I know that it's possible to make 100 and still have your buttons with you and still be producing and be creative. Isn't that a wonderful goal? Yeah.
I hope to be doing that at 40. I mean, we got to stay in bed longer than get more sleep. I think.
Sitting here talking with you today, I feel like you have somehow retained a sense of wonder about what you do, that you're still, it's like, wow.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, is that accurate?
I'd have to say so, and I hope so, because it goes back to my own feelings of when I would see productions in the theater when I was in high school and college, but it does. It goes back to the experience that I had here, actually working in the very particular classical repertory theater atmosphere, that it is a special thing. There was a saying of that Vincent Dowling had, that work in the theater is more fun than fun, and I've always thought that. I can't imagine a better place to be than backstage, preparing to go on, or in a rehearsal hall.
I lived just around the corner from the Lakewood High School auditorium in 1960 when this. I guess it was 61 when it sort of got together, and so it was an easy way for me to go there, and I used to go to those early ones, and I'm trying to. I know Larry Carra was there for a while, who'd come.
Arthur Lithgow.
Arthur Lithgow was the first
artistic director.
It's
Then
John's
Larry
daddy,
Carra.
right?
John Lithgow's father.
Yeah.
Then Vincent Dowling, and then myself. They've only been 4 and 30 years, which is quite unusual.
That's amazing.
Usually they get worn down a lot faster, I guess.
There are repertory theaters that I went to on the West Coast that are no longer in existence because of economic factors, so that the fact that the Great Lakes Theater Festival is still here and healthy and able to do this is quite a testament.
So that underscores the importance of tomorrow night, because this is a benefit, and the monies that will come in as a result of your coming here and giving of your time for this project will help you make the match and get the monies that will
to
come
help
to
the continuity.
And it cannot live on box office alone. Very few theaters can.
Not that kind of cultural institution.
Yeah.
As the orchestra can't, as the art museum can't. It's not commercial theater in that sense, but it is entertainment.
So tomorrow night, Tom, any lines at all?
Oh, please.
One thing he's not going to do is To Be or Not to Be.
I will not do this. I will not be performing any of Hamlet's work.
I always have the theory that you can, if you have a cue line, you can always toss it to a Shakespearean actor, and he will always remember what it was.
I can remember other guys' lines than I can remember my own. I don't remember anything like that. You always hope that you're going to sound very erudite and intelligent after I've done Shakespeare, but I'm still the clammy guy that I was when I first came.
Are you taking a break now from films, or do you have something that's on
No, I'll probably go back to work sometime in the spring, but it's important to let those things kind of simmer in the crock pot.
Tom, it's great to see you, and we'll see you tomorrow afternoon. I guess I have to come down here and do it.
You have to come down and rehearse. We have a great role for you,
Okay.
Fred.
Yes. See Fred as he's never been seen before.
Exactly, right.
It's tomorrow night. Call 241-6000. As Jerry says, the tickets are going fast. It's very close to a sellout at this point. But you ought to go if you can and see one of the great talents who spent formative years here on the boards of the Great Lakes Shakespeare Festival, now the Great Lakes Theater Festival. Jerry, thank you.
Thank you.
And Tom,
much.
thanks.
Oh, thank
wonderful
you.
to have you here.
Thanks so much.
Best of luck.
Pleasure.
Great pleasure. And we'll be back in a minute.
Thank you for watching Cleveland Live Music. If you like what you see, hit the subscribe button. There's further patronage information in the video descriptions below. Thanks for all the support and making the channel grow.